The sport of boxing is deeply rooted in American culture. For nearly 150 years, the United States has produced wave after wave of talented pugilists and dominated the sweet science on the world stage, producing nearly 500 world champions. 1. Muhammad Ali. Professional boxing record: 65 wins, 37 KOs, 5 losses. A man who truly needs no introduction, Ali's unique combination of skills inside the ring and charisma outside of it made him the most famous and financially successful athlete on the planet. He is still the only person in history to win the lineal world heavyweight title on 3 separate occasions and dominated 2 entire generations of heavyweights, including the immensely talented era of the 1970s. His victories over George Foreman and Sonny Liston, and his immense rivalry with Joe Frasier, remain some of the best and most widely discussed fights in the history of the sport. Even more impressive, he accomplished these feats despite missing 4 years of his prime between 1967 and 1971, after he became a conscientious objector and refused to be drafted for the Vietnam War. Ali's principled stance and willingness to stick to his beliefs made him one of the most important figures in both the civil rights movement and the larger countercultural movement of the 1960s, and to this day, he remains the most popular figure in the history of the sport. 2. Sugar Ray Robinson. Professional boxing record: 174 wins, 109 KOs, 19 losses, 6 draws. Sugar Ray Robinson is universally considered one of the greatest boxers, pound for pound, of all time, and there is a reason he was an idol to fighters like Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard. He demonstrated a near-perfect blend of speed, power, versatility, showmanship, and craft decades before anyone else, and his ability to fight in different styles and tailor his performance to his opponent made him almost untouchable for the better part of 2 decades. Between his professional debut in 1940 and 1951, Robinson fought 133 times and lost just once, to Jake LaMotta, a defeat he avenged just 20 days later. He won world titles in multiple weight classes, including the middleweight championship, which he won on 5 separate occasions, and won more fights against world champions and Hall of Famers than anyone else in history. 25. He also showed remarkable durability and longevity throughout his career, with his various reigns as world champion lasting nearly 15 years. 3. Joe Louis. Professional boxing record: 66 wins, 52 KOs, 3 losses. Joe Louis is arguably the most culturally significant fighter that the sport has ever seen, as he was just the second African American to win the heavyweight world title, but the first to achieve nationwide hero status. His historic victory in the rematch with Germany's Max Schmeling in 1938 is still widely considered one of the most important sporting events of the 20th century, as the fight came to symbolize the struggle between American democracy and the creeping fascism of Nazi Germany. But beyond that, his combination of skill, speed, and power makes him one of the greatest punchers that the sport has ever seen. His 12-year reign as heavyweight world champion is still the longest reign in the history of the sport, and his 25 successive defenses of his title remains the most of any champion in boxing history. 4. Rocky Marciano. Professional boxing record: 49 wins, 43 KOs, 0 losses. Rocky Marciano held the world heavyweight crown for 4 years and, to this day, is the only heavyweight champion in the history of the sport to retire undefeated, boasting a perfect record of 49-0. His relentless style, destructive punching power, and formidable chin are legendary. With a career knockout-to-win percentage of nearly 88%, he is the only man to have stopped every opponent he faced in heavyweight world title fights. The Ring named him Fighter of the Year 3 times, and he is unanimously considered one of the 5 greatest heavyweights of all time. 5. Floyd Mayweather. Professional boxing record: 50 wins, 27 KOs, 0 losses. Floyd Mayweather achieved the perfect career, retiring undefeated with 50 wins and no losses, and he will go down as the most intelligent and skilled defensive fighter of his generation. Not only did he never taste defeat inside the ring, he was never really in trouble, despite taking on some of the greatest fighters of the last 25 years, including Saul, Canelo, Alvarez, Manny Pacquiao, Miguel Cotto, Oscar de la Hoya, Arturo Gatti, Juan Manuel Marquez, and Shane Mosley. He remains one of only 2 men to win lineal world championships in 4 weight classes and participated in all 4 of the highest-grossing pay-per-view events in boxing history. 6. Mike Tyson. Professional boxing record: 50 wins, 44 KOs, 7 losses. It says a lot about the popularity of Mike Tyson that nearly 40 years after he became the youngest ever heavyweight world champion, a record he still holds to this day, he still managed to headline one of the biggest fights of 2024 at the age of 58. Prime Tyson was the most devastating knockout artist on the planet, boasting a career knockout-to-win ratio of 88%, and during his pomp he was arguably the most ferocious and terrifying fighter in the history of the sport. He reigned as the undisputed heavyweight champion from 1987 until 1990, when he was knocked out by underdog Buster Douglas in one of the biggest upsets in boxing history. His career was derailed for 3 years in 1992 when he was convicted of rape and sent to prison, but Iron Mike would regain the title a few years later before defeats to Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis. 7. Sugar Ray Leonard. Professional boxing record. 36 wins, 25 KOs, 3 losses, 1 draw. Sugar Ray Leonard was the first man in history to win major titles in 5 weight classes, and with his victories over Roberto Duran, Marvin Hagler, and Thomas Hearns, he was the only member of the Four Kings of boxing to defeat every other member. His unique blend of speed and power, coupled with his immense charisma outside of the ring, made him one of the biggest draws in boxing during his prime. He even came out of retirement after 4 years to recapture the middleweight crown by defeating Hagler, handing him his first defeat in 35 fights. 8. Joe Frazier. In the golden age of heavyweight boxing through the 1960s and 70s, Smokin' Joe Frazier was one of the very best, reigning as the undisputed heavyweight champion from 1970 to 1973. Frazier's relentless style and powerful left hook helped him win a gold medal at the 1964 Olympics and quickly established him as a top contender when he turned professional. He handed Muhammad Ali the first professional loss of his career in 1971 via unanimous decision in what is widely considered to be the biggest boxing match in the sport's history, before Ali beat him twice in the subsequent rematches. Named Fighter of the Year 3 times by the Ring magazine, Frazier only ever lost in the ring to 2 men, Ali and George Foreman. 9. Jack Dempsey. Professional boxing record. 68 wins, 53 KOs, 6 losses, 9 draws. Jack Dempsey's style was revolutionary. Kid Blackie was the prototypical knockout artist, utilizing his speed, punching power, and aggression to overwhelm and devastate his opponents over his 13-year career and becoming a cultural icon in the United States. Dempsey's style was so entertaining and his popularity was so great that his 7-year reign as heavyweight world champion saw him set numerous financial and attendance records. His 1921 victory over Georges Carpentier generated the first $1 million gate in boxing history with 92,000 people watching. In 1950, the Associated Press ranked him the greatest fighter of the last 50 years, and the Ring magazine currently rates him as the 6th greatest heavyweight of all time, and the 4th greatest puncher of all time. 10. Evander Holyfield. Professional boxing record. 44 wins, 29 KOs, 10 losses, 2 draws. Despite being most famous for having part of his ear bitten off by Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield is one of the greatest boxers of the last 50 years. The real deal was the undisputed king of the cruiserweight division in the 1980s, before moving up in weight and claiming the undisputed heavyweight crown with his victory over Buster Douglas. He is the only man in history to become the undisputed champion in 2 weight classes in the 3-belt era, and the only 4-time heavyweight champion. He briefly retired in 1994 due to medical advice, but returned a year later to recapture the heavyweight crown, beating Tyson twice and earning a controversial split decision draw with Lennox Lewis. He should have hung up the gloves earlier than he did, fighting until he was nearly 50 years old, but his dominance throughout the 80s and 90s cannot be understated.